you so much for being here today. And thank you for being, part of the community, bringing your voice. Everything that you've done is so inspiring. And I love what you've been doing, not just in your life, because obviously you're an inspiration as it stands right now, because you're a pilot, you're a Guinness World Record holder, you're a martial artist, and you haven't let anything hold you back, but you're also building a mission to create and impact others just like you. So tell us a little bit about Jessica.
Well, that's a lot to ask, I guess. How short or how long? Because I could go on and about myself. But just to kind of give everyone an idea, I was born without both of my arms. And since day one, I think I was blessed with some amazing parents that really set the precedent for me to make sure that I was successful, that I had the right attitude, and despite this very obvious difference, succeed in the world because I started to adapt to using my feet at a very tender age, of probably even before I can remember, probably a year old. I didn't have the arms and hands there, so I started to naturally adapt to using my toes and feet as I gesticulate with them right now as I'm expressing myself, talking to all of you. It's so natural. So the whole natural ability to use my feet followed me throughout my life and everything I've done. And I know you kind of posted up some of the things that I did that are a lot more shocking to the average person. The fact that I became the first armless pilot and the fact that I practice Taekwondo on a regular basis. And those things that I don't even think twice about because it's my normal. But I have had a journey to get there because it did take me longer than the average person. And the journey of acceptance was a process for me as well.
No, I love it. I mean, it's a hard thing to accept what we're meant to be in life for normal people, and what you've got going on is just fantastic. Your story, your ambition. I love your ambition. I love the background. Being a pilot and being a martial artist, and then you've got your documentary that you've got that was an award-winning documentary and a book. And I just everything you've got is so empowering, and we're part of a business community here. So I'm bringing this community together with the team over here at GoDaddy, and we're so thankful that you're here speaking to us about how you've thought about approaching your life and how you're impacting others to think about approaching them, their thoughts and their fears and their capabilities. So you know I would love to have the GoDaddy team that's here introduce themselves so that they can share why they're here to support you and make sure that you feel committed to as a community member, and then we'll get to talking about your story and your journey with the Right-Footed Foundation, if that's all right.
That would be wonderful.
I'll go first. Hi, my name is Jonathan. I work on the GoDaddy brand social media team. So my day usually involves talking to customers, building engagement strategies around how we talk to people, either in social comments or at events. And we meet. I talk to people who have all different kinds of businesses and have all different kinds of ambitions and things in life. And what makes me so excited about our meetups every single week is that it's almost like I get to take those smaller engagements that I have every day and have like a larger 30-minute conversation with someone very interesting who I get to learn so much more about. So I'm really excited to have you on today. I think you have so much to say about just ambition, and a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like it's such a risk, right, to launch a business and to really follow your dream. And I feel like you've done that 5 times over. So I can't wait to hear more from you about how you sort of built your core around being able to do those things.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, and I am Jesse Wilson. I am part of the brand community team. Jonathan and I are on the same team basically, but we have different functions. I work with typically Rachel McCool is here. She's not able to be here today, but I work with her, and I work with I do a lot of customer facing stuff, but also a lot of back end things to manage platforms and stuff like that. But super excited to be here to meet you today. I think your story is just super. I mean, it's super inspirational. I mean, I'm sure you probably heard that once before from somebody, but I think GoDaddy's all about empowering people to do what they want to do, to follow their dream. And I mean, you exemplify that in a really great way. So glad to be here.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, and I'll introduce myself if I hadn't done that already. My name's Adam Griggs. I'm just your moderator today. I'm the co-founder of a startup called CLARAH. And I'm so privileged to know Jessica and to be able to work with her. You know, the theme of what we do here is community. It always has been. It's stories that we share to impact and empower and enable everyone. And Jessica, your story is just so fantastic, but it's not just your story as it stands, right? Now it's kind of evolving into you creating your own community and your own following. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about how that's starting to come to light.
Well, I actually was growing up without arms. I, for the longest time, felt I was the only one. And one day, my mom's friend calls up our house. This is back when we had landline phones. We don't have those anymore. But my mom's friend calls us up and says, "You need to turn on the television right now." So I go over the TV and I turn on the television, and sure enough, there's this story about a woman who lost her arms at the age of 3, but she adapted to using her feet. She had 2 boys. She was married. She was living a very happy life. And in that instant, I realized that I was not alone, and that she was out there in the world, and that I could connect with someone. And it transformed my life to recognize that I can do anything. If she's a mom, she's married, she has these beautiful kids, then I could do anything. And I wanted to replicate that same experience that changed my life, to do the same for others. And I said, let's create a nonprofit called Rightfooted Foundation International. Right-footed because I am right-footed, and it also is intended to mean getting people on the right foot. And I started that nonprofit with the intent of connecting people around the world who share the similar difference of being born without arms, or being or losing a limb at some point in their life, with a special focus on children, because I know that makes a tremendous impact, and to mentor, educate, advocate, and inspire. And it has been a wonderful 5 years now. We've reached a lot of people. I've been able to use an airplane as a very symbolic representation that the sky is not the limit, and to be able to fly this plane to places to really advocate for the message that disability is not inability. And it's been a wonderful journey, and so happy to share it here with all of you in your community at GoDaddy.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know that you were impacted by somebody else as an example that, you know, that kind of led to your inspiration. That's a fantastic piece of the puzzle for a lot of people, because so often we find ourselves feeling trapped or alone in our own fears and our own thoughts about moving forward. And when you saw somebody else living a life that's fulfilling and happy, and it created that spark inside of you, not only did you run with it, you've embodied it, and you've created this momentum where you're going to impact others. And I love that. I love the message that disability is not inability. That's fantastic, Jessica.
Thank you. It's really, it is a message that continues. It needs spreading throughout the world, because unlike here, in the United States, where I was born and raised, we have a lot of protections in place for people with disabilities. But when you step outside the United States, you really realize, and I think I recognized this at a very early age, that there are so many stigmas out there that prevent people with disabilities from doing some of the basics, like getting an education. Many places I've been in the world where people with disabilities are kept hidden at home. And it's the unfortunate reality. Some people don't think that people with disabilities can get married in other countries around the world. And these are the realities of people who are experiencing this every single day. And it really brings home the message to me that this advocacy needs to continue, and needs to continue whatever means we can. Virtually is a wonderful way to get it out there, because we're all connected virtually and through the internet. And it's been a passion of mine, and now and it will continue to I hope it continues. And because I think we've all known, and all of you, Jonathan, Jesse, Greg, and I know you, or Adam, sorry, I know you guys have someone in your life who has a disability, because 1 in 5 people will have a disability at some point in their lifetime.
Yeah, it's very real, and it reaches all of us, and in different ways. And that's the part that's meaningful about what you said, reaching anybody you can, albeit in person or virtually, because at the end of the day, seeing somebody else make stride and have an example in their life on showing that they are capable and they can rise to the occasion, and you can have a business and you can impact others, that's valuable and that's important. And what you're doing is valuable and important. And I love that, because you're right. We all are affected by one way or another with friends, family, and relatives.
That's true. The business aspect, I like that you brought that up, Adam, because the business of being an entrepreneur, it and being successful at it now for 15 years, aside from the nonprofit that I started 5 years ago, but that whole entrepreneurial side, the business side, that means that you can succeed with any ability as an entrepreneur, as someone who starts their own business or starts an idea that can impact lives. And for me, I think, as someone who was born without arms and has been able to survive as a business owner for 15 years, especially in the last year that we've all been challenged with, I think it says that anyone has this capability to succeed, to run a business, and to find what their strength is and have that strength, give it out to the world and provide a service that no one else can do.
Yeah, I have a passion for positivity. And last year was like this crazy, overwhelming moment where everything that you read online was like negative and overbearing, and the world was just on everyone's shoulders. And we were all in the same storm. And I love that you continued to share your mission and your journey, and you're very open about the fact that you are a speaker. You're out there to impact people. It is your livelihood and it's your business, and that's great, because if you can do something that pays you for your passion, you should always pursue that. And you sharing your story is impactful to so many people that may have that very same feeling, that desire burning in their hearts, and they have not had anyone tell them yet directly. It's okay. Pursue it. Pursue it however you'd like to. If you want to go out and do speaking engagements or be online and do conferences, this is fantastic.
Yes, it's so true. Right around March, April, when we were all hit with all the challenges in our own personal way, whether it was business, family, or whatever it was, I recognized that me being out in the world was especially important. And I wanted to just get the positivity out there, because I knew that this negative impact was going to affect so many people. So that's when I started doing daily videos on my YouTube, on my Facebook, and I was doing live videos just to really help people in whatever way that I could, because I wanted to take my position as someone who people are inspired by, and continue to pump that inspiration, the motivation out into the world, in a world that really needed it. And so I felt like I felt I was going to rise to the challenge of doing whatever I could to enhance my presence on social media, on the internet, and doing a lot of Zoom meetings as well, so I could do motivational Zoom messages to companies and nonprofits and associations, because I felt like there was such a battle there between the negativity and the positivity, and I wanted to shine through as best as possible. And I turned my whole motivational speaking into a virtual platform that I realized that it's not just about getting on stage in front of thousands of people and inspiring them for a single event, but it's about inspiring them in whatever means possible. If that's a Facebook Live video, if it's LinkedIn, or whatever it is, it's important to continue to have that positive influence that we all can be a part of. And I did my best, and continue to, and will continue to do that.
You're doing a great job. I gotta just say, there's a saying that they say, you can't do all the good in the world, but the world needs all the good you can do, right? And so the fact is, we are only so capable amongst ourselves. But what you're doing, building your brand and being online and being visible, is allowing people to feel connected. And when people feel connected, they feel empowered, and they want to perpetuate and build not just what you're doing and sharing what you're doing, they want to be a part of it. And that's going to lead to other people feeling inspired and wanting to share their stories. And they're going to impact so many families and so many children. And it's going to take over the world. So I appreciate that. And I love your perspective. Jonathan.
I just had to chime in, because it struck such a chord with me to think about how you, just like every other, business owner, or, small business owner, blogger, whatever it was, had to adapt last year. They all had to adapt right on a dime. And I'm so grateful that you made it a point to not only adapt, but to be so present with people on live, on social media, because I feel like that's such a scary thing for so many people. Is I just have to adapt to something that I'm not used to, or something that I'm not built to. And there aren't a lot of people who can speak to things like that with such authenticity than you. I feel like you have had so many instances in your life that you have adapted and you have just said, nope, I can do this. I can do whatever this is. This has changed, and I'm gonna do it either way. I'm gonna get this done. And to have this whole year happen where I found myself so many times just being like, oh, I can't do this. This is too hard. It's new, it's scary, whatever it might be. And to have someone who is so experienced in positivity and in making those successes happen. I think you have had probably more of an impact this year with people than, it might be hard to measure, but I think you've impacted so many people that you might not even know of, right? Those ones that just tuned into your live stream for 30 seconds and then hopped out again. They just, they jumped in and they went, oh my God, okay, that's what I needed. I just needed to be reminded that I can do hard things. I can adapt to, and I can get it done. And I think whether it's a pandemic we're facing, or it's, the before time and you're just trying to start a business, like there's such a mindset that so many people get into of, I can't do it. And it's so remarkable to hear from Adam. I know Adam's one of these people too, who's incredibly positive, but it's so incredible to keep hearing over and over again, I can do it. And I did do it. Because that is, I almost think of that as almost an inhuman way to think about things, because I feel like most people, I'm rambling a little bit, oh my God, but I feel like most people have those insecurities, or most people have, and they're really big, right? They build up, and it's a big hurdle to get over. But to be so practiced in just being like, nope, I'm going to do this. Nope, I'm going to accomplish this. I set my mind to it. I'm going to do it. I think there's such a potency there. And I'm going to make sure to tune into more of these live streams coming up. I really do. I can't imagine how many people you've impacted with your messaging over the past year.
Oh, thank you so much, Jonathan. I loved how you put that, because it's so true that we get into this rut, and I'm human as well. So I have those moments of, this is going to be too hard, or this is overwhelming. And we have to sometimes just really break it down and make those achievable steps possible. And one little step closer to your goal will end up leading to all these other steps. You have more momentum, and then you get something done that maybe initially came across as intimidating. And that whole methodology of breaking it down is something that I had to have when I was adapting as a young child. And now I teach that as a speaker and as a seminar in my seminars, is breaking down the challenge. And I have the saying, think outside the shoe, because it's just my unique take on think outside the box. Yeah. And you mentioned it, adapting, and really that's a huge part of it, is shifting the way you see any challenge or any obstacle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Exactly. It really is a very special message that you're able to provide for people. And I think that it is like nowadays more than ever, it is so important to have people like you who are using their voices to inspire people with whatever it might, whatever their hurdles might be, whether it's business or just, overall confidence, or even just going back out into the world and feeling like I can do this. Like it is, I feel like there is such the word I keep thinking of is potency. There's such a potency there. And I really am so grateful that you've used your platform to share this message. And I encourage you to continue to do it as much as you can.
I will, for sure. I plan to.
I love your journey so far. And going back to what you said, when you're doing your speaking engagements and you're challenging people to break it down to more of a simple message, where you're overcoming the small challenges that lead up to the big challenge, right? Which is creating your identity and creating your brand and really challenging yourself. I love that. Tell us a little bit about how that goes with your speaking engagements. Do you do that specifically to small businesses? Are you doing that amongst communities? And tell us a little bit about how you do those in the workshop.
Okay, so it's so funny, because when I first started speaking, I was fresh out of college, and I knew I just wanted to do it all. And I think that anyone who takes on a challenge wants to just do it all right away and get successful at it. But it's really a journey, and it's enjoying the journey and the process. So it wasn't like I could become a motivational speaker overnight. I had to start by speaking in small locations as a volunteer speaker, whether it was like the Toastmasters group where you learn how to hone your speaking skills, or whether it was a volunteer gig at a Rotary Club locally. And then it starts to build on itself. And that's true with any challenge, that every single one of us has some kind of challenge and we want to do it all at once. But it's about being patient, enjoying the journey, and then eventually, years into it, you'll be surprised when you look back and realize, I remember when. And that was me. I remember when I volunteered and spoke at a nursing home to a group of people at dinner. And here I am now speaking in the Opera House in Tel Aviv, Israel, for a TEDx event. And it's a wonderful process to be able to get up on stage. And it takes a lot of courage for anyone to get on stage, but you learn how being up there is not about me. It's never been about me. It's about every single person watching. And the same way what this event is about right now, it's about providing someone something that they can use for their own life to enhance their life in a way. And so when I get up on stage, I recognize that at the beginning, this is not about me. And when I get up there and I share my story, I share what I've gone through for example, I start off with the story of learning on my first day of flight training that there were going to be a lot of challenges. And the first thing I started off with was putting on my headset. And I broke 2 headsets in the process, figuring out how I could just put a headset on my head, something that student pilots don't think about. So when I share this message out there, I think it makes their own impossibilities reality, because I help them shift their lens of how they see an obstacle, how they see a difficulty. And that's what I want to constantly be a reminder of, is that they can achieve their own impossible.
No, I love it. I love your journey and your voice. And it's funny how so often, and I work with small business owners all the time, and so often they come to me and they're overwhelmed with options, right? They're overwhelmed with options, which is kind of what you said. And it's really, they're overwhelmed with opportunity. It's opportunity to do anything they want. And you're challenging people to think of that mindset, but allowing them to break it down to the small steps, right? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1 step. And I love that you're doing it through stories. Stories are so impactful. I mean, obviously you just shared with us, you didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden have an Amazon, award-winning documentary about your life. You started by sharing your voice, sharing your inspiration, and sharing your journey, whether it be at your local Rotary Club or at a Veterans Affair or overseas in Tel Aviv. And those things all compound. And when they compound, success shows up. And when it shows up, you have to show up with it. And I love that.
Yes, it's so true. It's that whole law of attraction. You put it out there, and it's incredible in the ways that other opportunities will come about if you put that same attitude, the positive attitude, and open to opportunity. That's something that you mentioned, and I love that aspect of being open to it, because there are opportunities everywhere. But some of us shut out those opportunities, whether it's an internal voice. I used to say shoe. When I say think outside the shoe, shoe represents S, self-limiting beliefs, H, habits, O, overcomplication, and E, excuses. And so sometimes we shut out our opportunities, and instead of recognizing that everything's an opportunity. And I love that you brought that up, because it's just the way you approach it.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's the mindset. And opportunity doesn't have to mean that you're going to take on everything that comes across your path either. You have the opportunity to say no if it's not right for you. You have the opportunity to know your brand, know your worth, and know your value. And that's exciting. I love that. Share with us what's coming up for you in the near future. Talk to us about what you've got going on in the horizon.
Well, I am nonstop. Literally, I'm a nonstop person, and I just have this recent challenge. My nonprofit I mentioned earlier it's called Rightfooted Foundation International, and about 2 years ago, a very generous pilot donated his airplane to the nonprofit. And so we wanted to use this airplane to get the message out there because he knew how important it was. And in the last 2-3 weeks, we realized that there was corrosion on this airplane engine. And corrosion is a complete no-no for flying. And I know for those who are not maybe mechanically inclined, like myself, I've had to learn a lot about mechanics of an airplane. But corrosion is something you do not want on your engine anywhere. So we had to completely stop our efforts and our work that we wanted to do with bringing this airplane across the country. Just for a reference, it cruises at about 90 miles per hour because it's a vintage airplane. It's an old plane. We were going to take it across the country, stop at a camp for children missing limbs, 200 children born or who have lost their limbs. We were going to stop there and inspire them with this airplane. And then we had this setback in the last 2 weeks. And so we've essentially stopped everything we're doing to try and figure out what do we need to do to get this plane back in the air. And just yesterday, I found out the part that needs to be replaced. It's called the camshaft. I don't really know much more than what it is, but the camshaft is critical in the engine. And I got that. We found someone who is going to mail the camshaft off and other parts of this engine. So that's what we have been working on, is getting back into the air so we can bring this airplane and continue to inspire children with disabilities and eventually get enough hours under my belt so that I can take people flying with the nonprofit. I can take one passenger at a time, which is what my certification as a sport pilot allows, but for a nonprofit, I have to have a certain number of hours under my belt. So that's what we're working toward, is getting using aviation as inspiration, and that's what's keeping us pretty preoccupied in the last couple of weeks.
I can't believe somebody donated their airplane. That's so cool. I mean, corrosion or not, that's pretty cool.
Yes, very generous. I have to thank Tim Treat for that, because he was so, I mean, he called me up one day and says, I want you to have my plane. I'm like, are you kidding me? And overnight, I had to learn how to have an airplane. It's not as easy as it may sound. You don't just park it in your driveway. You got to find a hangar for it. You have to get insurance for it. You have to have a mechanic look it over. It was such a learning process.
Yeah, that's a great example right there. You've got this idea. You want to go and inspire people literally in front of their eyes with aviation in this plane, and bring other kids into your world and their capabilities. And somebody who made a good deed donated to you, and there was challenges, but you're rising to the occasion, and you've got a team, and you're not letting that get you down. You're not letting that, stop you. I love that.
Yes, thank you. And I will continue to do my speaking, however, whatever ways I can get it out there, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, which I'm having my first in-person event in a solid year in 2 weeks. So I'm very fortunate for that, and happy that we're kind of, I'm fully vaccinated, and a lot of people are starting to move forward with some in-person events. Some other events are remaining virtual, but I will continue to get that message and speak and share for conferences and in-person events.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. Any way that we can support you, Jessica, let us know. I know you've got speaking engagements all over the world, and you're very busy traveling and just connecting with people. So one of the things we love to do is create the feeling of community. You're part of our community. You sharing your story today, people are going to embrace it. They're going to feel empowered by it, and they're going to want to challenge themselves to rise to the occasion and challenge themselves to support you on your journey. So any way that we can support you, definitely let us know. If you've got upcoming speaking engagements, post it in the community, share with us. If you've got anything that's coming out that's a workshop specific for kids or families on how to overcome their own obstacles or to challenge themselves to be more empathetic, things like that. Talk to us about that. I love it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Can I mention something since you brought up empathy? I have to talk about this a little because this is another passion of mine, is really getting the word out there on the advocacy side of things. And I have this acronym called ACCEPT, and it's acknowledge, communicate, consider, empathy and not pity, people first language, and trust. And that is a message that I like to bring to people who maybe have an encounter with someone who has a disability or someone who's different and they're just stunned by it. They don't know what to do. The first thing to do is just acknowledge the person, acknowledge your curiosities, and recognize that that person's very much a human being and wants to be. The reason I have to come up with acknowledge is because a lot of times when people see someone with a disability, and I've experienced this my whole life, is the moment their eyes see the person with a disability, they look the other way. It's because of their own insecurities and their uncertainties and fear and not sure how to handle this. How do I stare at this person? It's wrong to stare, so I need to look the other way. And then the person with a disability or the person with a difference feels like they're invisible. But then staring is not appropriate either. So what's the balance? So it's to acknowledge the person. C is for communication before assuming someone needs help. Because, you see someone without arms, you immediately think, oh, I got to open that door for her. But it's best to always ask the question, would you like me to open the door for you? Or would you like me to help you with something? So if we ever see someone who's different or has a disability or looks like maybe they're struggling, it's best to ask the question first before making the assumption. And then the other C is for consider. Consider meaning basically do exactly what you would want to, however you would want to be treated. A lot of times people with disabilities, people with differences feel like people do a lot of condescending things or say a lot of condescending things. So being considerate is important, and empathy and not pity, that's pretty straightforward because I know what it's like. My whole life people have pitied me and not recognizing or realizing the whole story, that I can use my feet like hands and that I've done these things. And so empathy is more powerful than pity. And so that's why that's empathy. And then P is for people first language, and that's recognizing the person before the diagnosis or the person before the disability. And that people first language empowers and addresses the person first. And then the last letter is T for trust, trusting that the person with a disability, the person with a difference is their own best advocate. If they say they've got it, they have got it. If they've figured out a way to do something, it might look like it's a struggle, but they have their own system, and we have to trust that they can do that for themselves. So that's why I'm thank you for that opportunity to kind of share that little acronym for anyone out there who's ever had an encounter. They're not sure what to do.
I love it. Thank you for the share. Thank you for giving us the visual and the backstory too. And I love that you end it with trust. I feel like trust, it often is at the end of the list, but it's one of the most powerful things that we can do, because we have to go through the processes of getting to know people and allowing them into our world. And when we do that, it always ends in trust. And the trust is the hardest thing to build, the easiest thing to break, right? And I have to share a story with you. I have a client who they've been a client for probably 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And his business was actually booming in 2019. He was expanding. And in 2020, travel stopped. And I didn't have the availability to really connect with him like I wanted to, because he was in a different time zone and he was restricted. So we got on a call and we talked about his plans and where he was going to expand the business. And he told me that he had to let me go because his caregivers were there and they needed to take care of stuff. And I didn't know what to say. What do you mean caregivers? Do I ask that question? What's going on? Well, it turns out he's paraplegic and he runs this large home healthcare organization from his wheelchair. And I never knew, And I felt guilty because I wanted to give him kudos for doing that. But then do you give somebody kudos for doing what other people do? And, having those conversations. So we started with communication. I just talked to him about what made him start his business. And it was his coach who helped him get his muscle and his fitness done, even though he couldn't move himself. And just the verbal communication and the physical conditioning allowed him to feel strong enough to really want to move forward and be an entrepreneur. And that was crazy. And so we started with communication, and now we've just built this relationship, and it's built on trust. And I love that you shared that acronym, because it really struck a chord with me going through something just like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for that real life example. And that was so true. And it's wonderful that you were communicating and you asked him about his business before you even asked about his disability, or even if you didn't even ask, it sounds like it. And that's something that's so beautiful, because so many times, like you said, people think that we as people with disabilities, doing the ordinary things are doing extraordinary things by going out and buying a gallon of milk at the grocery store. One time I went to the grocery store and I just picked up a box of cream puffs because that's my one. I think I have this weakness to ice cream. And I went and got a box of cream puffs. That's all I went to the store for. I came through and I went through a self-checkout cashier, was checking out myself. I have my card in my shoe and I pulled out my card to make this purchase. And a guy comes from behind me because he's in line at the self-checkout. And he says, "Oh, I just want to let you know you are so brave." And I turned to him and said, "Why? For buying cream puffs?" Because I was actually being bad. But it's funny how we're doing the normal things that we don't want to be celebrated for, because that's just reinforcing that this is not normal. It's reinforcing that this is out of the ordinary for being out there living our normal life. And that just makes us feel a little bit, it's a little demeaning. So it's important to say, you're brave for doing something, like maybe someone is pursuing a degree later in life. That can be inspirational, but not for going through the cash register and making a purchase of ice cream. That's not something to be called brave for.
I love that. I love the share. It's just kind of taking off that tangent. One thing that you said was we are all doing things that are impactful and amazing every day. And over the course of the last 12 months, I think just being present, being involved in people's lives, even when we were disconnected or in our own homes and separated, being present is something that's incredible. And we don't give enough kudos for that. So kind of on the converse of that, the flip side of the coin, I think people should thank each other for being friends and being around and being available, because so many of us felt segmented and separated immediately last year. So I love that. And I love your voice. I love the inspiration.
That is so true about presence, because that's something I have to constantly remind myself when I'm speaking on stage, because a lot of times I like to go through my notes and everything in my head. And when you're on stage and you're in your head, you're not really being present. So it's very hard for me to do, and I'm sure a lot of speakers who are very much in feeling like they need to be in control, they go through their memorized speech, or they go through what's in their head is, I need to accomplish this, this, and this. But we forget, and that's something I have to remind myself, is presence in front of a large audience is more important than going through all the facts and figures of what I needed to say that day in my memorized 1-hour keynote speech. Being present with this audience, responding and taking the energy that they give me in response to a story that I may be telling them, and feeding into this whole, like you were talking about, the community, and community is important, is reacting and being present with each other.
I'm just so thankful for this conversation today, Jessica. Everything that you shared, your story, your vision, your mission, it is impactful. It is amazing. You are a great speaker. This conversation felt so laid back and just open and welcoming. Thank you for being, who you are. I want to be considerate of time. I know we're getting to the end of our hour here, but I'd love to kind of, open it up to the GoDaddy team here to ask any last minute questions or offer kudos. Jonathan, do you have any last minute comments for Jessica?
I just have to echo a lot of what Adam said. I always love these conversations, but there's something so, I'm also someone who's like, I love speakers. I really do I love listening to TED Talks. I love listening. Like, it's always something that I always like kind of aspire to do, or always wanted to do. Adam will tell you I am not very quick to shut up. But I'm so blown away by just the way that you have presented a lot of the thoughts that you've had throughout this discussion. Like, I feel like that might have been a poor way to word it, but even when you were giving that the story about the checkout line and what the guy said to you, I couldn't help but sit here and think about how powerful it must be to be someone who knows right off the bat, and obviously it took time, but to know that man's comment had absolutely nothing to do with you, and had everything to do with him and his perception of what is easy, what is hard, what is impossible, whatever that might be. And you've brought that same positivity and that same open-mindedness towards every part of your conversation today. And it's really, really, truly inspired me to think more about when I'm faced with something, even if it's a small thing, I'm not launching a business anytime soon, but if it's a small thing about putting myself out of my comfort zone, whether it's a very far out of my comfort zone or just a little bit, like really being able to change that mindset of mine and think about, what, this might be, I might think this is impossible for XYZ reasons, but I need to get myself out of this. I need to get out of my own head and realize that I'm capable of doing this. I just have to break it down. Or I have to remind myself that, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Because I've been in this mindset before where I go, okay, graduated college. Why am I not the best at what I do? Where is my talk show? What is this? And being able to really, really hone in on, it's about enjoying the journey. It's about enjoying the process. And it's about knowing that when those moments come up, those good moments, those bad moments, those uncomfortable moments where people don't know what to say, or they don't know how to speak around you, or it's so encouraging to just know that is a mindset that is accessible to so many people, and all we have to do is really apply ourselves and put that effort in. And I have to say, I don't have a whole lot of challenges ahead of me today, but I think I might set some up just to see how I confront them, because I really am feeling very I don't think about things the way that you do very often, and I think I'm going to work a lot harder to do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. Good luck. And I'm glad you're going to challenge yourself.
Yeah. It's really, this was a really great discussion. I feel like so much of what was said can be applied to so many different parts of anyone's life, no matter what they're doing or who they're speaking to. Being able to be present in a situation, whoever you're talking to, recognize you're speaking to a person first, right? No matter what it might be, if it's an age difference, if it's, whatever it might be, there's just something so, it almost seems like we shouldn't need to be reminded of this, but like, oh my gosh, we should get this reminder every single day that we are always talking to people, and no matter what's going on in their life, no matter what your perception of them might be, you have no idea until you ask, until you have that conversation, until you get to know that person. And anyone who is watching this is going to take something away from it. And that's really powerful, Jessica. That's really, really powerful. And I can only imagine what people feel like when they leave one of your speeches. I can only imagine.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for taking that powerful message away and breaking it down for us. That's so beautiful.
I'm not as fluent with words as Jonathan is. He has a lot more to say than I do. But something that you said, and Jonathan just mentioned about those with disabilities and still acknowledging that they're people. I in my lifetime I've had I've had a bunch of different jobs, right? And a couple times I've had the opportunity to work with adults with developmental disabilities and also children. And in particular, I worked for an organization called United Cerebral Palsy. And I can remember one of the times that was so eye-opening for me in that it was just the fact, like what you've said, recognizing that these are people, like, and especially with those who have like really severely limiting physical issues where they can't even look at you, or they're just kind of in a position they don't have full control of their arms or their legs or any part of their body, but they're still people. They are still in there. And I think just like you said, recognizing that we're all just people, and we all have our journey that we have to go on. And maybe and certainly my journey is going to be different than yours, but it's still a journey, and we all have the one that we have in front of us, and that's all we can really do.
Yeah, that's true. That's wonderful.
Yeah, our journeys are all very different, Jesse. I can align with that, because I do not think I will be flying a plane anytime soon. It scares the living daylights out of me.
You'd be surprised you can do it, Adam. It was my greatest fear too, but you can get over it. Just sit in the cockpit. Don't think about it on the ground. If you sit in the airplane and you're in the air, it'll be a totally different experience.
Well, I might take myself up on that one day. Jessica, thank you. Your conversation today has been so considerate. It's been so well versed, and it's just been so committed to community. Right? Everything you're doing is embodying an impact for everyone. Whether you're coming from the walk of life where you're an entrepreneur, or you're inspiring others the way that you were inspired to kind of challenge yourself, or just challenging each other to treat each other as humans. Right? That's what we have to do, is treat each other as humans. So thank you for that, and I love it. Tell us where we can send people, where they can connect with you, they can align with you, and they can book you, because you're a fantastic speaker and you should definitely be booked up.
Oh, well, thank you for that opportunity. I do have a website, jessicacox.com, and you can find out about my speaking and how to connect with me there, as well as the nonprofit Rightfooted Foundation International. It's also on that website. And that's for anyone who has a limb difference and wants to reach out about a question. I'd be happy to connect there, and find me on social media as well. And obviously LinkedIn and Facebook, where I was doing some of the live videos. And my Facebook is JCMS Official. But I hope to connect with anyone and everyone who wants to, and we'll keep this communication, keep the community of positivity and thinking outside the shoe. And I love this, that you gave me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this amazing community at GoDaddy. I hope to continue to be a part of it and keep the conversation going, because that's where it starts. It starts with conversation about changing, the world and our perceptions. And like today, in the last hour, it's been a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your voice. Thank you for sharing your world and just being a part of our lives. You've impacted us already today. So I love it. We're going to get this all wrapped up. We're going to release it to the community members, and we're going to share it out. So continue doing what you're doing. You're an inspiration. And thank you for, again, giving us your time today.
Thank you, Adam, Jesse, and Jonathan. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yes, thank you.
Well, have a great day today.
All right, bye, guys.
You too.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.